Hey, so I want to talk about whether a MBA is going to help your career. And I'm going to flat out tell you this, that probably not. And I'm going to explain what it does help and where you're going to go with it. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massack. I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I want to pay the favor forward to help you out. So if you want to check out in terms of, an MBA does have, that there's a correlation between making more money and an MBA. It's one of the few degrees. So I have an engineering degree and I have an MBA, and those are some of the degrees where tends to be a correlation between making more money and stuff like that. But I don't necessarily sort of view any degree as an instant sort of thing, right? Like if you do this one thing, everything all of a sudden sort of changes. And that's what I used to sort of view, but it doesn't work that way in terms of what actually happens. Sometimes you sort of benefit from these things sort of by getting a degree as sort of an entry point, but for the most part, what you're looking for is actually three things that are going to happen. And I think that this is probably more along the way of what people should teach you about. And this is the reason why I don't think it's going to help out your career as the sort of way that you're thinking about it is going to help you out. The first thing is that it is going to give you insight into this world, right? So that's an important thing with education. So insight kind of, and that's the thing with an MBA is that I would view myself as doing a disservice. So I teach the MBA strategy class at my institution. I would view myself as a disservice if I just taught you about money and financial performance and things like that. That's not a good sort of view of this world. I think that there is so much more to this world that is super important. If you wanted to get insight about a religious organization and you wanted to, maybe grow a religious organization or develop a deeper faith, for example, I think that those are really amazing things to think about. And maybe that would be the course of action that you should sort of choose. Or maybe you're thinking of going into government, for example, and you want to develop a stronger relationship and be a better public servant. I think that is a better course of action than any sort of financial performance that you're going to get. So I would hope that you would get insight into this world of, what is, how can you better serve humankind? And I think that is a better course of, better sort of decision or goal, and whatever that humankind looks like. Or maybe it's not just humankind, but like better serve, the universe, the sort of bigger question. And those are really hard, difficult questions to sort of think about, but that gives you insight into this world, right? And that's really important to think about what this actually means and what you're going to do. So having that insight and having sort of bigger questions, I think that's a really important thing with education, is really to stop and think about what is the world around us. And that's a bigger thing than sort of that financial performance mindset, which is so you can get that anywhere, right? I mean, just Google that stuff and you'll find every institution is trying to market to you that their MBA is going to make you that much more money. Every institution, every report that's out there or whatever, it's trying to tell you this stuff. But I don't think that is a mindset that I would necessarily love to sort of teach my students, and it's not a mindset that I ascribe to. So I think the second thing that's really important is to realize that an MBA or any degree gives you opportunities. And so what does that mean? And this is sort of related to the first thing. It gives you opportunities to go into different directions. And I think MBAs are one of the few degrees that has a tremendous amount of possibility that's built behind it in terms of where you can go, because it's not narrowly defined. It's more of a generalist degree, although there is sort of specialist takes that you can take on it, like an MBA in healthcare or an MBA in sort of finance area or whatever. So you can take these sort of directions into different areas, but for the most part, it's pretty generalist. So it allows you to see the world very in an open lens, and allows you sort of to take opportunities into different directions. So if you want to go into the startup industry, it sort of helps you think about that. Or you want to go into startup industry, well, if you want to go into a very unique industry that is just beginning, if you want to go into the finance industry, you can sort of go into that and decide, or go into consulting and all those things. So it's gives you a lot of opportunity, but it's ultimately your choice in where you want to go, right? If you want to use that MBA to forward and improve a religious organization, so maybe you're in a mosque right now, and you want to make your mosque better serve people by having more spiritual insight, well, then it probably would be helpful to sort of think about these kind of things, because it gives you some frameworks. And the last thing that I think is really important, so that means like you choose on where you're going to go, and that's why I think it's like so important not to think about just financial performance, because often you're going to want to choose things that are not going to be as financially rewarding, but it's more rewarding for you in terms of what you want to do. And the last thing that I wanted to point out, so the third thing, it's a signal, and that's a really important thing to think about education as sort of signaling and where to other people and what it actually means, right? So that sort of, what the meaning behind that degree. So not just an MBA, but like maybe it's where it's from, or what is a sort of specialty that you're getting. That meaning to other people is really, really important, right? Like, how are they going to identify you when you go up and, actually apply to jobs, or they're looking for certain people. And if they see, so that's the weird thing, right? Like with your resume, or for any degree, this is the one problem with, PhDs, is that we get sort of narrowly defined, and then people don't necessarily know where to put us and what that actually looks like. And so it's the same thing within an MBA, right? Like you're going to get sort of boxed into certain areas, and you have to sort of think about, what does that mean? And so you have to define what you mean to the rest of the world. And so an MBA is going to help you think a little bit about what you mean to the rest of the world. And I'm going to tell you, once you do it, you're still going to be confused, but you're going to be a little bit better at what you're doing. So I've done all this kind of stuff, like I've been in a business professor and stuff, and I'm going to tell you this right now, I'm still kind of confused in who I am, and I think a lot of people are going to tell you that kind of stuff, because pigeonholing us into certain categories. We're really multidimensional, and we have a lot of sort of different things going on in our lives, right? So just having that one thing, how we define ourselves, is not necessarily, I don't think it's fruitful. But what you have to do is think about how other people are going to view you, and it's not necessarily marketing, but it's sort of figuring out how other people are going to view you and where you're going to go. So that's an important thing to think about. So hopefully this gives you some insight. So, if you choose, you can make an MBA, make it very financially rewarding for you, and that can be helpful. But you can also choose to do it to go into different areas and to think about the world completely differently, and to maybe do something that's really unique and interesting, that is not going to be as financially rewarding, but it's rewarding to you. And so that's where I want to sort of emphasize here is, it's not a ticket. No education is ever a ticket to, golden ticket to get something. It's actually a way to think about the world, and it's insight that you're getting. And that's the more important thing that you should be doing. So thinking about, that sort of signaling that you have gumption, that's really important. The opportunities that you're going to get. And I'm blanking on the first one. But you see where I'm getting at, right? Like it's not a golden ticket, and you can sort of see where you're going to go once you do it. So with that, give me a thumbs up, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Take care and have a wonderful day.